Nigerians are reacting massively on the recent request of Tinubu to borrow another in tons sum of 516 million naira. Man, this is very huge. I would like you to watch this video and see the reactions of Nigerians and the way they plan to repay back this loan. It will shock you to know that Nigeria is gradually
where people online are questioning President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's brand new request for a $516 million external loan to pay for parts of the 1,000-kilometer Sokoto-Badagry superhighway, which came on Thursday. Now, the president's request letter was read out by Senate President Godswill Akpabio, with the request, which is expected to be sourced by the Germans through Deutsche Bank, now officially triggering legislative consideration. Let's watch.
So I join you and my colleagues to commend Mr. President that in these difficult times, when we don't really have money, that it is better to borrow for projects. It's better to borrow for infrastructure so that at the end of the day, we'll have something to see. And then we can pay through even the infrastructure. Repayment can be done through the infrastructure. So this is highly commendable.
Now, the money for this loan would be used to build sections 1, 1A, and 1B of the highway. And yes, infrastructure development is a positive step, as this road aims to connect about 7 states from Sokoto and Kebbi all the way down to Lagos. But the bigger questions remain about who will pay for this loan, how long will it take to pay back, and of course, what does it mean for future generations that will inevitably have to live with it? I'll take one quick reaction from X. AJ says, another loan, again. Nigerians are not against development, but we're tired of borrowing with no clear accountability. This superhighway sounds ambitious, but how many projects have we borrowed for that are still incomplete or abandoned? And meanwhile, in Edo State, President Tinubu's son, Sheyi Tinubu, and other members of the City Boy movement met with the state governor Monday Okpebolo, who called the group reflective of structure, vision, and purpose. Here they are together. This movement also set to meet with young people across all 18 local government areas of the state before continuing to other states in the region. And while Sheyi was there, he started trending for being seen driving himself. And of course, a local hype man had a lot to say. Let's watch.
See Sheyi the drive by himself, Sheyi Tinubu. See Sheyi Tinubu the drive by himself for Felicity. Edo, Sheyi Tinubu. Now this guy one, that's why we want for Tinubu, because the sun is around.
So Vimbai, the City Boy movement, we've talked about it before. It's traveling, but of course this is coming as the president has demanded this new loan, and people have a lot of feelings about it because they're questioning how is this beneficial to me, and also are we thinking about security, because a lot of times people don't even want to travel by road because of fears of insecurity.
Right. I mean, there's a lot there. With regards to Sheyi Tinubu driving, he drives himself in most places across the country. He's a young man and he likes to drive. So maybe people are surprised because they haven't seen it before, but I'm not sure what the big furore is. Like Dr. Abati said, there's an economy around campaigning. So that person hailing him was probably looking for his own moment in the sun. So that's that on that. City Boy movement, listen, I think that you've got a group of young people who have access to a lot of resources and are using it to deploy towards whatever they believe in, what they feel benefits them. So let them continue. On the other side, of course, you have a group of young people as well who don't have access to state resources. And so it's now up to the Nigerian electorate to be able to decipher between the two, that it's not monetized. It should not be about buying into somebody's support, if I may call it that. But unfortunately, we know the reality that many people will get rice, they'll get all these, small tokens and may be swayed. The village boys are also coming. They're saying, oh, we're not sharing money, but we have ideology. So let each man, plant their feet and make their bed wherever they want to lay. That's that on that. let's focus on real issues. In fact, before I move on, you spoke about insecurity, and I continue to re-echo what Senator Abdul Ningi was saying, that all these political activities actually just need to be stopped for now. Because you have, look at the amount of resources being deployed to, yes, there are private citizens, that's the city boys, but all this politicking is happening, and it's now leading the news cycle, and we're now forgetting to hold our lawmakers, our leaders accountable, especially in the area of insecurity. So I doubt it will happen, but the idea of it, the concept for me of just putting an embargo on political activities, maybe after primaries, let's know who the primaries are, who's been, who's gotten their tickets, and then let's just take a break from this, because we're moving too fast and the nation is already heated up. Oh, they're already telling me next story. Let me round up on the issue of the Sokoto-Badagry highway, which I think there's a general consensus that this is an important highway. This opening up this corridor is of huge significance to not just to national cohesion, but to economic activities as well. That goes without saying. But the question is it a priority for us to take foreign currency loan for at the moment? And the jury is out on that one. My argument in the morning was that infrastructure doesn't necessarily in itself create economic viability or economic activity. Some people buy into that argument. Other people are saying, look at the example of countries like China, Malaysia, Singapore, and so forth, who said we first invest in industries that can create products for export, then use that money to create infrastructure to export those things. A lot of economic theorists and analysts will tell you that infrastructure itself does not create economic export value. It's only export volumes that creates export corridors. So there's a back and forth debate about that. However, I'll quote Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni yesterday when he said, well, at least if they're taking the money for infrastructure, it's better than them taking money for them to eat it. So we want to see the accountability. Right. Let's see the progress with this road so that we know that truly the money went for infrastructure and it was not eaten.
Right, absolutely. I mean, these are all the questions that Nigerians want to know, and we'll be watching to see how all of this plays out. But let's now shift gears and take another story, where a new video from the content creator and activist Mark Justice, also known as Justice Crack, has sparked a flurry of reactions as he shares pictures of the food Nigerian soldiers in Maiduguri are given during their service. So in this clip posted on Thursday, he raises the question as to why younger Nigerians would be incentivized to join the military when, as we've discussed before, the salaries are uncompetitive and the food leaves much to be desired. Let's take a look.
Nigerians, look at the food that your soldiers are eating. I uploaded a video a few hours ago. It never even reached 1 hour. A military personnel sent me this picture. This guy sent me this picture, and I asked, what's this picture? He said, this is what they feed them morning, afternoon, and night in Maiduguri. If you know Maiduguri, you know that is the hub of insecurity in Nigeria. Those guys face death every day. They do the worst every day. But look at what they're feeding them.
And Dr. Abati, in an interesting twist also on Thursday, the same content creator got another image within the hour of posting that first video from a member of the Nigerian Air Force showing the food that they're given while serving the country. Let's take a look at that.
Look at what they're feeding your Air Force officers. Look at what they are feeding your Air Force officers. So how do you expect them to be efficient? How do you expect them to work? How do you expect more people to join this army? This Air Force. Imagine Air Force. Do you know what is Air Force? One of the respected force in Nigeria. See what he did. See that rice. That rice does not have any nutrition. Look at their bar. Look at the soup. Are they prisoners?
Now, the point of these videos isn't just to show the food the members of the armed forces are getting. Beyond that, it's also to contextualize these images with this report from the Daily Trust this week that said that the federal government spent well over 600 million naira on the rehabilitation, infrastructure, and reintegration of terrorists under Operation Safe Corridor. So when people see images like this, it raises questions about spending, priorities, and of course, like he said, Dr. Abati, the nutritional value. I mean, it's important, right, for our armed services to receive?
Well, you know, a few years back, maybe 2 years now, or is it 1 year, Senator Adam Sushomole stood up on the floor of the Senate of the Federal Republic and raised questions about what the military hierarchy had been doing with the tons of money being given to the military. And he cited the example of some of the military chiefs diverting the money to their villages to go and set up structures, vainglorious projects. At that time, there was some debate about it, but Nigeria quickly moved away. Now, military chiefs should be called to question. Because Nigeria, when you look at the budget, defense usually gets the lion's share of the budget. And Nigerians understand, given the challenges with security that we have. Now, the problem here, used through the symbolism, the image of the feeding of the soldiers on the war front, explains that look, while the chiefs are doing very well, the boys that are facing death on a daily basis are not properly fed. So you see some kind of hypocrisy when we come around and we say, oh, we salute our gallant, our valiant soldiers who are giving up their lives to protect the country. Their welfare is important. Whether you're talking about the Air Force or the Nigerian Army, they belong to the same armed forces protecting this country. And the person who made the point that repentant terrorists, repentant in quotes, are better fed, that about 604 million naira has been spent on those ones to provide ashwebi, to give them pepper soup, give them jollof rice, and organize events for them. But the people who are trying to defend this country, look at the kind of food that they are served. Food not even fit for a dog. Some people keep dogs in their homes. They feed them better than this. Prisoners abroad, in those countries where they have prisons and the prisons are functioning, they eat better than this. So the soldiers, it's not just about those in the war front. Those that are even outside the war front who have come on television to say that they buy their uniforms themselves, they buy their boots themselves to go and face better equipped terrorists. I think that this should be investigated to ascertain that it is true. The defense headquarters owes us an explanation to tell us if indeed this is the kind of miserable nutrition arrangement for our soldiers who defend this country under difficult circumstances. Many of them, the police, the other day, policemen said their barracks have not been provided for. We have not had any feedback in that regard. So it will amount to sheer hypocrisy on the part of government to say that these soldiers should defend this country, the policemen should enforce the law, and yet their welfare is not properly taken care of.
Absolutely.
We must see a difference. And if there is a difference, you will not see this kind of video. I don't think that this is sheer propaganda. Okay. And I make that point because in the protocols for both the military and police and other services, whether it's immigration or any other of the services, they have a rule that as a soldier, as a serving officer, if you have a complaint, the place to go is not social media. You can report to your superiors. But we have seen these officers out of desperation and frustration going to social media to say this is our condition.
Right.
Because when they report to their superiors, nothing is done. And that's why they don't even trust their superiors. I got some empirical fact. The feeding allowance, which is called RCA, ration cash allowance, is 3,000 naira per day. It is monthly. So 3,000 naira per day. Yeah, you're trying to build a context by saying how much they used to settle terror is 600 million. Let me even shock you. 3,000 naira per day. As at 1999, I used to be close to some lawmakers. Their lunch allowance for sitting was 14,000 naira. That's at 1999. Where are we today? 2026. How many years after? That's like 27 years after. The lunch allowance of a lawmaker 27 years ago is still more than the ration allowance, daily allowance for the military today.
Wow.
Maybe we should put these lawmakers in uniform. Let them go to Borno State to go and fight and justify their conspicuous consumption.
And this money is paid monthly. That's the country we live in. Wow. And it's supposed to be per day. So what do they expect you? 1,000 naira for breakfast, 1,000 naira for lunch, 1,000 naira for dinner?
Wow.
And you are wondering why Nigerians are going to fight in Russia and the likes when they know they can get millions. I'm not supporting Nigerians going to fight in Russia and everything, but we are saying practical analysis.
Right.
I know I was close to a lawmaker, 1999. The lunch allowance there was about 14,000 naira.
Right.
Well, all right.